The player is introduced to each level by means of a long continuous shot showing the various interactive elements of the decor, not unlike films featuring another fan of action.
Jackie Chan is obviously a major inspiration. Initially, we wondered whether the prince should even have a main weapon. We wanted him to be able to fight with his hands, picking up weapons as he goes. Then we thought that we didn't want him to actually become Jackie Chan. He's the Prince of Persia, a hardened warrior who is never without his sword, and knows how to use other weapons too. We also wanted to give the player a sense of freedom. So we created different ways of interacting with the environment that are very much inspired by Jackie Chan. Like all the swinging around pillars, the way he can attack whilst running along a wall, project himself off walls. Or the way the prince can grab his enemies and throw them or do different attacks on them.
But there are more than just Hong Kong movie influences in the game, especially if you study the look of it.
Obviously, The Lord of the Rings is the biggest film of the last 3 years, and graphically, a very big inspiration, whether it's for the colors or the characters.
The Prince of Persia series always liked films. The original creator, Jordan Mechner, is sort of a game designer, scriptwriter, and documentary maker all rolled into one. Prince of Persia was one of the first games to include cinematic cutscenes.
The presentation of Prince of Persia 1 was really inspired by silent movies. You know, in the days before movies had dialogue and sound, you know, they told the story with title cards and in very simple vignettes. I really tried to tell the story of the game like a silent movie with little cutscenes after certain levels that would advance the action.
This clip is taken from an interview conducted in Montreal in 2003 when the making of Sands of Time was filmed. But now, for Warrior Within, no sign of Jordan Mechner.
When Jordan isn't in Montreal, he's in Los Angeles, writing the screenplay for a live-action Disney film, backed by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Jerry Bruckheimer. It's okay, everyone makes the same mistake. He's the producer of The Rock, of course. But let's rather have a look at the story of the game, which is far removed from a Whoopi Goldberg comedy.
In the previous game, the prince was able to turn back and alter time at certain points. He can completely change his destiny by traveling back in time, doing the biggest rewind in history. But we're not supposed to change our destiny, and the prince's actions have unleashed the Dahaka, the guardian of time, determined to eliminate all temporal paradoxes. The prince is a paradox. Considering the events that took place, he shouldn't exist. By opening the sands of time, he has corrupted the timeline and must die. The prince has the crazy idea of going to the island of time where the sands of time were created, hoping to travel back to before their creation. So that's an interesting element. The prince travels back in time, and that allows us to flesh out the unexplained mythology from the sands of time, like the creation of the sands, where they come from, why, how, etc. It complements and completes the first game.
To put up with a character that's cursed, hunted, let's face it, he's doomed. The game had to look right, too. Judge for yourself what he's done.
It was a team decision to do something a bit different, a change of style from the Sands of Time. We realized that the initial character was two Arabian Nights, too nice actually. So we really wanted a marked difference this time. We'd all worked on the first game. We didn't want to do the same thing twice. So we said, let's do a real sequel, part 2, not part 1.5. But how? So we asked ourselves, what's happened to him since last time? Look at the story from the character's point of view. He has, after all, made a monumental blunder. When he opens the Sands of Time, everyone he holds dear dies under his eyes. He manages to more or less repair things in the end. But it doesn't end there. That's why it's an interesting license. With each new game, we add a little more to the saga. To be honest, though, by the end of the Prince of Persia Sands of Time project, we didn't know that Prince of Persia Warrior Within would continue the story.
So, the new prince's look went through a few changes, and a few hybrid princes were tried out. Let's have a look at a few of them.
This design on the left was part of a series that was supposed to help make our prince better than the previous one. Apart from his really determined-looking posture, and the fact that he's bigger, more muscled, it's still very reminiscent of the previous prince. Nothing really like the new prince that was perfected over several months. The evolution of the character came slowly, and this sort of design made us realize that we had to take things a lot farther.
The development stage of the character is what filmmakers call pre-production. It went pretty quickly on Warrior Within, as the whole game took just a year to develop, even if many different ideas were tried out.
It's as diverse as other games, which are a lot more open, with you roaming freely in the deserts on horseback, and objectives that are less clear. Rather than finding yourself in a strange world after having died, a bit more mystic than visiting the seven wonders of the world or finding the elements of time hidden in different parts of a garden. But we knew that we left ourselves some possibilities open with the final majestic twist of the Sands of Time. We could come back to the story and use it to continue developing a very particular side of the character. Darker, more mature, more determined.
And to get a result like this, the Ubisoft Montreal team looked to the movie world again.
Lots of the character's traits and motivation became clear later on, especially when we brought a couple of special agents on board, Hollywood scriptwriters that we worked with. We flew them into Montreal, put them in with the production and creative teams, and one of them, Corey, stayed on a really long time, working with the teams on the story, working with the level designers, adjusting the character's profile, changing the dialogues, etc. The story and the adventure, the gameplay. After watching the scriptwriters at work, we realized that they were really the best people to write the story. Professionals. In Hollywood, there are a lot of talented people who can write a story better than a game designer. We always thought the game designers could write stories perfectly well. We were wrong. It's interesting what we tried to do with the writers, working on an emotional curve that has an impact on the game scenario and the gameplay, but also making sure that the player's actions are respected. We tried to create moments of suspense, dramatic moments.